Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. I'm really super excited. I have come north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin to visit Erin the Impatient Gardener. For those of you who don't know, please follow her as well as my channel because she gives great information in a different zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm up here in Zone 5, technically Zone 5B, but I think that B is questionable sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
So how long have you been in this house? Because there's going to be a tour video from the house as well as this question and answer video.
This is 20 years this year that we've been here.
20 years, okay. And did you jump right into the garden?
I did. Actually, that's one of the reasons why we bought the house was because the container garden was exploding. That first year was not a lot, but it has grown, obviously, by leaps and bounds. None of this was gardens when I first came.
Yeah, again, guys, there's going to be a tour video where we walk around and see some of these spaces. We're going to talk about like one plant at the time in this question and answer video. And let's talk about this one first, your climbing hydrangea.
Yeah, the climbing hydrangea. I have two of them. And this one is probably 15 years old, I would say. As you know, the thing with climbing hydrangeas is patience is what it's all about.
Yes, definitely.
They don't do anything for about at least 5 years usually.
Right. Yeah.
So this one is growing on an ash tree. It's actually a dead ash tree.
Right.
So it was alive when we planted it, and when that was taken by emerald ash borer, we just topped it and left it here. So it's a little bit of like a totem pole now. But I think it's a great plant because it really offers almost four-season interest. It's got great fall color, really beautiful yellow leaves in fall, and you do get some kind of interesting bark and interesting structure along there in winter. And the flowers, you get those flower heads on there all winter long.
How long has the tree been dead at this point?
I would say probably 5 years now.
Right, so you probably get another 5 before. I don't. Who knows? At some point.
Well, maybe. Yeah. I mean, the hydrangea is so thick on there; those vines are so big that I think at some point the hydrangea will become the supporting partner there.
Wow.
So,
let's move to another one.
All right.
What's your gardening history? Just how do you end up with this kind of beautiful space like this?
Well, like a lot of people, my mom gardened, so I was there as a child. Then I got out of college, and like a lot of people, it disappeared during that time. And then all of a sudden, I started getting into containers, and then it just kind of blew up from there. And then I became a master gardener, and went through that training. And then I just loved the learning part of it, and I still do, because that's the fun part. There's always more to learn. So you never know it all. So it's fun to keep going. So that's how that sort of progressed into what is a rather large and important hobby in my life.
Right, and there's no end to the learning. That is that's the funnest. That really is the funnest part of it, especially and that's why I'm here, honestly, because I get to see. I'm not up here. I don't see a Zone 5.
Right.
I don't see a Zone 5 gardener. So before you were on YouTube.
Yep.
And she's very close. When this video goes up, very close to 100,000 subscribers. So let's do it. So you had a blog called The Impatient Gardener, and then you've called your YouTube channel the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the blog started in 2009, and it's still out there, and I still post to it. It's just that once the YouTube came in, I started pushing a little bit more time towards videos, but it's still out there.
So we are approximately 200 feet from Lake Michigan right now. So this has to have an impact on your garden, that giant body of water out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a microclimate in this area because everything is dictated by the temperature of that lake, which is, if you're not familiar with Lake Michigan, it's a big lake. It's not like it's a little lake. So everything is affected by that. So primarily how that translates to my gardening season is springs are very long and very cold.
Right.
But I get paid back for that in fall. We get falls that extend much farther.
Right.
And this microclimate is really specific to us. 10 miles inland is a completely different thing. So it's really specific to right here at the lake. And it also has a moderating effect during summer. We don't get to 100 degrees here, even though places around us probably would, because there's always sort of this cooling effect from the lake. Yeah,
it's very, it's July, whatever it is today. And it's very different than Raleigh. It's very different than Raleigh. So let's talk about a few more plants. What do we have behind us here?
So this is a plant that is so cool, and it always draws people attention. This is Aurelia Silver Umbrella. So it's a grafted Aurelia. Right. And I got it from Broken Arrow Nursery not many years ago, actually. 2016 this was planted as a little stick. And I've talked to other people in this area who have a really hard time growing it, actually. So
Right.
I nailed the right spot on it, clearly, but it's got this beautiful variegation on it. And the only thing that's if you're looking for a negative with it is that it does have this tendency to push up from the rootstock every once in a while.
Right.
You'll get a sucker from that, and you got to take care of those right away, because those are, the devil's walking stick is the common name for Aurelia, and they are that. They're so spiny and so terrible.
Right.
This is not that spiny. It's got a few spines on it, but not bad.
Nice. And it's in a great setting with hosta and lamium and your hydrangea arborescence here as well. It all looks great together on this corner.
Yeah. So, and it's worked really well here, and it just kind of curves around at the top of the deck just enough to look good from that angle too. And this is on the north side of our deck, so it's actually, down here it's really in quite a shady little spot.
How much snow do you guys get in the winter?
I don't know what the total average is, but any winter can vary from probably 4 feet of snow. We can get in a snowfall, we can get 15 inches at one time. This past winter, we had almost no snow.
Right. How does that affect what you can overwinter?
Well, snow helps big time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a good insulator. So, for instance, this last year when we didn't have a lot of snow, it wasn't particularly cold, but we lost a lot of plants because there just wasn't any insulation there. So.
Right, and everybody's pushing the boundaries. So I
Everybody's
imagine, I imagine there's some things in here that
I have a few things that are probably borderline for sure, and I've lost many things that are borderline because I feel like when I push those boundaries, that's what I'm signing up for going in.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
knowing full well 1 year it could just be gone.
That's exactly the way it works. Let's talk about your tricolor beech.
Yeah, so this was planted probably 2 years ago now, so it's relatively new here. And my understanding is that the variegation was better when I bought it. And my understanding with these is that the variegation does kind of wane a little bit for the first few years that it's in the ground after it's during this sort of acclimation period.
Yeah, I see that on a lot of plants.
So but it's really a beautiful statement piece. Definitely an investment tree, and slow growing, so it's not going to outgrow this space anytime soon.
Right.
So.
You're in a big, wide open space, no fencing, no nothing. What are your pests?
My pests are deer, and many of them.
Right.
It's a huge issue around here. We have a ton of deer. We're right by a state park. They come out of the state park. They love to check out what I'm growing here. So I manage them mostly by, well, first of all, there are some plants that I just don't grow because I know that they will be absolute deer food. I pay a little bit of attention to where I'm growing some plants. I'm less likely to plant, if I'm going to plant a hosta, and I do have a lot of them, it's closer to the house because they aren't always necessarily close to the house. Right. The main thing I do is I'm pretty vigilant about applying deer repellent. Right. I try to apply it every 7 to 10 days, 2 weeks max in between sprays. And I spray everything. I don't just spray the plants that they want to eat. I spray everything. So the idea is everything in this garden tastes terrible and smells terrible.
Right. Right. And it works. And it seems to work.
It seems to work. We do have. There's a few things that get nibbled here and there, but it works pretty well. Particularly in the main part of summer. Once the food sources start getting a little bit more scarce, then we do get a little bit more damage. And I actually have to worry more about the winter damage than I do on shrubs and stuff.
Makes sense.
Than I do during summer because they're really looking for something in winter.
Right, and you guys have so many there's so much vegetation here. It's so lush. They probably have a lot of opportunity in other places.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have to point out your poppies are blooming and it's the middle of July.
They just started.
They just started. And ours were done and seed collected. So you're, probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep, I would think, yes.
Something like that. What are your favorite, you do a lot of your own seed, just like we do.
Yep.
Okay, so what are some of your favorite seed and annuals that you do from seed?
My number one is Nicotiana.
Okay, got it.
I have lime green Nicotiana all over everywhere. I like that chartreuse color. I think it ties everything together. Yeah. It's one of those plants that I always have. I like the poppies, obviously. Those are so easy. I just throw those.
Scattered.
And that's just throw them and they're there. So they get big points for that. Things like nasturtium, I think nasturtium is such a useful plant. If you have a hole in the garden, you just put some big fat seeds in there and you're generally good to go.
Right.
Those are all some of my favorites, but I do grow a lot. And what I love about starting them from seeds is that it's not like you do save money, but you can't buy those plants anywhere else. It's not like I can go to a garden center. Nobody sells.
You can get the one you want.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yep.
What about perennials? What's your favorite?
So, well, I obviously, that's like picking a favorite child, but I do have a bit of an affinity for clematis.
Oh, got you.
It was probably my first sort of collection, although I don't like to say I have collections of plants, but I have a lot of them around. And I like working them in different ways. I don't have a lot of structures for them to grow up, so they do things like they cascade over walls, or they grow up a shrub, or they grow up the banner for the staircase or something like that. So I try to find different ways to work them into the garden, and I grow mostly group 3 clematis.
Gotcha.
Just don't have to deal with the clematis wilt with those, and they're so easy. Just chop them off and they're done. And it's a no-brainer thing, and they do really well here.
Yeah, and yours are just, I mean, ours, that's another one of those things that bloom, go crazy for us right out of the gate. And then the summer, the heat of the summer definitely knocks them down. And you can still have color on them.
Yep.
Spruce.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have, I mean, we got one little baby spruce in the landscape. And it's in the shade, but you can do these beautiful blue.
Yeah, and they're such great obviously, especially here in winter, it is it's really a vast gray area if you don't really go out of your way to plan to have something to look at. So when I made this garden back here, which was 2011 is when I sort of redid this back area, I put in 3 globe spruces, kind of sort of one there, one there, one there, to kind of carry your eye through the space. This is a dwarf blue globe spruce. And over the years, I've sort of limbed them up from the bottom because they got a little, icky at the bottom.
What conifers do.
And and I found that if you're really careful, you can sort of prune them a little bit. You just always have to make sure to do that cut where you're not going to see it.
Right.
Because you're going to see that cut forever if you put it somewhere. But so I kind of top these every once in a while, and I go in there and I sort of, massage them to make sure they're going to fit in this space and still look the way they do. But it's a nice little, especially just now, the needles are just kind of starting to harden off. They have that beautiful blue color, which is such a good color to add to the garden.
Let's talk about some differences in zones. Somebody will tell you something's hardy in zone 5 to 9 and it needs shade. Well, it probably needs something different in 9 than it needs in 5.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And so much of that is just figuring out what works for in your area, and sort of playing around with that, and sometimes pushing things a little bit. So like, for instance, here we've got Hosta, this is June up here. We've got Heckenacloa called Stripe It Rich up here. Stripe It Rich. And of course, those are shade plants. This is fully east facing. So this is sun. This is sun, not just this is probably sun till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon even.
Yes.
And I have a rose right in front, and I have a rose growing right in front of it. So that is a combination that most people will go, that doesn't work.
Right.
But it does work here. And as long as there's enough moisture, in particular for those hostas there, it's no issue at all. They do really well right there. Yeah, and I'm sure you couldn't do this.
No,
right?
I couldn't. Those hosta would be crispy.
Yeah.
They'd be crispy by July. And so that is a difference. And it's something you have to kind of learn, about your area. It's not, one of those things I always talk about is going to gardens, going to local, going and looking. So you're up here a little north of Chicago, north of Milwaukee. What are your favorite public spaces?
Yeah, so there's some great ones around here. First of all, Chicago Botanic Garden is amazing.
One of the top gardens in the world.
It is.
Right.
And it's really lovely. And I have gone there in June, and I've gone there in February. And there's something to be gained from it every time of year. And then Obrick Botanic Gardens over in Madison is really inspiring, and they do a great job there. And there's also Berner Botanic Gardens, which is kind of just west of Milwaukee, which is a little bit smaller, but they do a nice job too, and you always have a good opportunity to see what they're doing there.
And what you can get out of that by going different times of the year is that you can realize that there's something that will hold its color through the winter, something that will keep it from being bleak, or
Absolutely.
Everything dying back to the ground, or everything being deciduous.
Absolutely.
Right.
I would love the opportunity to live close enough to one of them. I mean, if I lived within a half an hour of any of these places, I would probably try to go there once a month all year long, because it would be such a good exercise in learning how things change in the garden and how you make it flow throughout the year. Right.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, I have a video with, I hope it goes well in the next couple days at the Chicago Botanic Garden. So in looking back here at your hydrangea paniculatas, mine are full color as I was leaving the house, and these are Almost budded.
Yeah, I don't even think they are yet. Those are some limelights that I have back there, and if they're maybe just thinking about starting to get some buds on them.
Right.
So yeah, so it's going to be a while before we have them.
So I think you could see from the backgrounds that as we've bounced around how beautiful this garden is, and it'd be a couple weeks from now I'll have a video up on the channel. So what's your website or your blog?
Yeah, so you can find me at theimpatientgardener.com. That's the blog. Over on YouTube, it's The Impatient Gardener. It's Impatient Gardener on Instagram, which is super convenient.
Right.
So, some variation of those words will get you to me.
Nice. One thing I forgot before I wrap this up. So, being 200 feet from the lake here, your soil is sand.
It's sandy. Yeah, this was basically a beach at one point. So
Right.
it's quite sandy soil. Some places it's sandier than others.
Right.
And interestingly enough, there was clearly soil fill brought in. So you never really know what I'm going to run into at different points of the garden.
Right. Same.
In a good part of the garden, it's basically sandy loam. In some places, it's a lot of sand. So it's a lot of compost adding, to bulk up, trying to bulk up soil is really what I'm working on. Kind of the opposite of what you're dealing with.
Right, yeah, trying to drain water away
Yeah.
from it. Yeah, and we get flooding rains
Yeah.
when we get rain in the summer.
Yep.
And what are you mulching with?
So I mulch mostly with leaves. I'm not a big fan of wood mulch.
Right.
I do use a really fine pine bark mulch in places where I want it to look a little nicer. And I use arborist chips because they're free and plentiful.
Yeah, your path, same.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see that.
And but mostly it's leaves if I'm mulching. Ideally, I wouldn't have any mulch and I just have ground cover covering everything. But leaves where I need it.
Nice. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for being such a great hostess.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. This is so fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys.